Okay, it's finally time to look at each one of the invoice parameters more in detail. Let's go to our web interface and see how the invoices are represented in our system. Okay, here, to get to here, we need to go to our customer. This is our test customer, invoices and taxation, issued invoices. And then we get to the list of all issued invoices for this customer. We are going to look at the parameters in the order they are presented in the default view, but so that you know, these can be changed to your convenience, okay? The first parameter that we have here is the invoice status. We are going to look at each one of the statuses a little bit later. Then we have the invoice sequential number. Why does this number have to be sequential? This is actually important from the taxation point of view. Any missing invoices will be the reason for problems to arise during audit. We have a couple of options here for the sequential number. We can go back to our customer, invoices and taxation, and invoicing configuration. And here are our options for invoice number sequence. The default is the same sequence for all customers. Okay, then we have individual for environment sequence or individual for customers. The service provider will pick the best option. The next parameter we have here is period. The period is the time interval covered by the invoice. As you may remember from our previous chapter, for automatically generated invoices, those invoices that are generated at the end of the billing period, the period shown here is equal to the billing period. For out-of-turn and mid-term invoices, this period is shorter. Our goal is to cover the customer's lifetime in the system from the creation date to the termination date with back-to-back invoices. You can picture this as a sequence of train carriages or book pages where one page ends, the next one begins. Okay, this is true for automatically generated invoices. Our next parameter is the issue date. The issue date is the invoice generation date. The time allowed to the customer to pay the invoice without any penalties is the grace period, as you may remember from our previous chapter. And we start counting the grace period from the invoice issue date. Let's consider the following example. Our customer has a billing period that ended on March 31st, and the invoice was expected to be generated on April 1st. However, because of a system overload, the invoice wasn't generated on April 1st, but instead it was generated on April 4th. The grace period will start on the issue date on April 4th. And if our grace period is set to 10 days, we can calculate the due date as the sum of April 4th and plus 10 days. It's going to be April 14th. Period total is the total amount of charges for the services used during the period specified here. To see other invoice parameters, let's download one of the invoices that we have here. To download an invoice, we just need to click on it and it will download automatically. Let's open it. Let's look at our invoice that we've just downloaded. Here we have the customer's information address, our address, the issue date, the period it covers, and the due date by which the invoice must be paid. Okay, and we also have the invoice total. The invoice total is just another name for period total. That includes all subscription charges, service charges, credits, and adjustments during the current period. Besides, we have the amount due. The amount due is the amount that the customer owes to the service provider, the total amount. It is the amount that the customer has to pay in order to pay off all of the invoices issued to date. If we are talking about the customer's first invoice, the invoice total and the amount due will always coincide. If we are talking about customer's second, third invoice, etc., then we also need to take into account previous balance in order to calculate the amount due. The amount due is calculated as the sum of previous invoice balance and invoice total minus the payments received during the period. Okay, any payments received for the invoice will be displayed in the paid amount column and adjustments in the adjustments column. And we also have outstanding balance that we will not see if we don't scroll here to the right. The outstanding balance is the difference between the period total and payments plus adjustments for the current period. So if our period total is $6.67 and our adjustments total to $5, we need to pay $1.67 in order to pay the invoice in full.